Hello everybody and welcome back. I hope you're having a good day. So it's been a couple days and I think I've decided what I'm going to do here. Um, so previously I was thinking about doing mortise and tenon, and we were going to have the legs kind of like this going up. But I've decided it's just going to be a lot of time and labor, and I don't want to invest that much into something that really doesn't need that much strength, to be honest. So I've kind of come up with a good compromise, and so what I'm going to do is we're going to have the legs going up this way and vertically that way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a half lap setup, so it's going to be kind of like this, except this will go all the way down the full length, and it'll be half the 2x4. So just imagine that, and it's just going to be a 2x4 here going up. And that's what we'll do for each corner. So that'll be a lot quicker. I can set my router up with a little table and router out that pretty easily. So that shouldn't be a problem. And I think that'll be still a joint that's overkill for what we're doing here, but it's not too time consuming to do. So I kind of like doing that versus the screws, although the screws would be perfectly fine. But we're gonna move ahead to doing it this way. So we'll go ahead and take off the tape from this glued pieces, and you can't even really tell that was. You can barely even tell that was separated now. I mean, it's good. Same with this one over here. Take the tape off of there, and like it never happened. So with that, I think we're gonna get set up. I've got one of the 2x4s that we ripped previously, so it's squared up. We got to get the legs cut out to length, and then we are going to set up the handheld router to route out the little half lap areas on them, and then we can get them glued up. So stay tuned. So what I've done here is I've just swapped out my bit. This old bit was used for a different project, so it's going to go back over there in the case here in a second. But you just put the one wrench down here, and it's got a slot down there for it to fit into. And then once you've got it on there, you can just it hits the sides, so you don't have to hold it the whole time if you don't want to. And then you just use the other wrench to loosen the actual nut that clamps onto the bit. And then what I did here was I just used this square, which has a ruler on the side of it, and let's use that to get the bit as close, or pretty close, to 3/4 of an inch. It's not perfect, it's hard to get a good angle from this camera, but it's pretty close, within about a 1/16 of. What I've done is I've swapped out the bit that was in there with a different style bit to do what I need to do. So this bit will be going back into the case here in a second. But there's this slot back here, and that's where this bottom wrench fits into, and it's pretty nice. So it can ride up against the edge, and that's a metal bracket there, so it's not going to hurt it. You don't have to actually hold the wrench if you don't want to, and then you come up here and adjust or loosen or tighten this top nut, which actually is the nut that holds the bit in place. And then I've got my square here, which also has a ruler on the side of it. And because what I need this bit to be 3/4 of an inch high, which is half the thickness of the wood over there, the boards, and half the thickness of the 2x4 as well. So I got it extremely close, and it's hard to tell from this camera. I can't get it down level with it, but it's within a 1/16 of an inch or so. I can make final adjustments with the adjuster on the mount on here, but that'll get me really close to it. And then earlier I put wax all over. I've shown doing that before. The wax just helps stuff slide across a lot easier and makes it just a lot easier whenever you're working with a table like this. Speaking of which, this is my router area. This little Bosch table is pretty good. It's just too small. It's kind of like a benchtop style table, so it's meant to be kind of clamped down, but I didn't want to use clamps on here. It's plastic. This part's metal, but this is plastic, so I didn't like the idea of using clamps, and honestly it's not something that I ever need to be moving around anyways in my shop. So I made a table for it, a very sturdy table for it, to make it work height. So it never moves from this spot. It's perfect where it's at, and this table is extremely solid the way I built it. It's 3/4 inch plywood top that I bolted through with zinc bolts, and so this table is very, very solid and does good for it. So that's my router setup, and this is what I'm going to use to cut out those 2x4s here in a minute. I have the fence set up to the depth that I need, and I've also hooked up my vacuum cleaner to this. And the reason is, well, I usually hook it up to everything. I've got it hooked up over there too, to the chop saw. But the routers make a massive mess, like you wouldn't believe. So even though I've got this vacuum cleaner hooked up to this dust port, it's still going to make a huge mess. But without it, the mess is just exponentially higher. So yeah, routers make a lot of dust, a lot of chips, so just be prepared for cleanup. Now we're going to run a test board through here. I want to make sure that my depth is good, the bit height is good, all that, and see how this goes. Alright, what we're looking for here is 1.5 inches. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it is pretty much exactly there. And then what we're looking for depth wise is 3/4 of an inch, and we are pretty much there as well. It's hard to tell on this one because of the round over on this board, but it's close enough. So I'm happy with that. And so as you can see here, there's just a slot on here right now, and what I will do is run it through there twice. All the legs will have to go through there the first time and put the slot in, and I like to start at the furthest point down. It's just, to me, I like doing that. We'll put a slot on each one just like this on both sides, both ends, and then we'll readjust the fence to take up this last 3/4 of an inch here. and then, you know, it may need a slight adjustment. Maybe it may not take up the whole 3/4, or if this wasn't, but it measured out to be 1.5 inches, pretty close. So we'll see on that. But it should just require one more pass to get rid of this other piece here, and then it'll just be a full notch. And again, this is just a test piece, just to make sure everything looks good. So I'm not going to go through that on this piece. I'm just going to say this is good. I'm going to start cutting my boards. Mainly you just want to make sure that your depth is good and your width is good here. So since it is, we're going to move forward and start cutting those legs. What I did here was I clamped this sacrificial board to the back when I was making that cut. And what that does is it prevents blowout from happening. Similar to what happened on these over here when I was using the planer. It will chip out and make a nasty mess on your wood. And just to show you what that looks like, the first one I did not do it, and that's what it'll do. Again, fixable, but we'll just say I did that for science to show you guys what not to do. And then when you clamp it and do it the correct way, it comes out pretty. Oh, and by the way, we're starting a pretty big pile, and we're not even halfway done yet. We've got the first pass on the first side of each leg. I've got to do the second side of each leg, and then we've got all of it over to do over again after I adjust the fence. Well, I got some bad news. Well, bad news for me, not really for you. The fence moved on me when I was doing that. I didn't tighten it down far enough. And it was, you know, impossible to tell. Well, not impossible. It was hard to tell because I got this giant pile of chips and stuff blocking the measurement. But I noticed it once I finished the last piece over there. And I had them all lined up, and we can see here that these two are looking pretty much in line. It's not perfectly flush on the end, but these two are looking pretty good. And then we go here, oh, much further in. And so I was like, what? How is that happening? So, and this one was done. You can tell this one was done, one of the last ones, because these three are all good. Most likely if I flip this board around, I'm sure that one's done good, and it would match these. So it's, I guess, the second set I did, the fence had slipped, and then it slipped a little more because these two are really bad, really off. So now I am not happy, because now I get to redo all four of those, because I mean, and yeah, all four of those have to get redone. There's no other choice in the matter of. Very, very disappointing, because it would have been perfect otherwise. Alright, so now I've got that clamped down very tight. This side didn't really seem to move much, it was just this side. And I've added another clamp here. So hopefully this won't move again. Now I've got to begin the process of recutting all of these, or figuring something out, because unfortunately I only cut 2 2x4s, ripped them actually. So all I've got left of those 2 2x4s is right here, which is enough for 2, not for 3, or 4 I mean. So yeah, we're gonna have to regroup on this, and figure out what I'm going to do next. I've thought about it, done some measuring with my ruler here. Even the ones on this side, which weren't as bad, it had started moving at that point too. But this side isn't nearly as bad as this side. At worst, it's about 1/8 of an inch too far this way. This side is more. This side's about 1/4 inch too far that way. So basically, that will be a big problem when you go to put this together. What I've thought about for a solution is I could make sure the fence is absolutely tight, of course, this time. I mean, it was tight last time. It just wasn't, I guess, tight enough. Because I was pushing, I mean, when you're pushing on the fence, you want to push hard against the fence and down, too, so that your piece isn't getting messed up by the router bit. Because it could, you know, start vibrating and flopping around. You got to push hard against it. You can't just lightly move the wood over. So, I haven't had that issue on here before. I've used it quite a few times, but the one difference is here, cutting it this way. I usually don't cut boards this way on my router. I've always done them lengthwise, and it's a little bit more fence area to push against versus having just this thin board that you're pushing against. So that could be the difference. But what I'm thinking of for a solution, instead of cutting 4 new ones, because like I said, I'd have to rip more 2x4s and then plane them. So in lieu of doing that, I could come in here, and I've already measured these. Measure the deepest, furthest this way cut that was made on this side. Set the fence to that. Cut the other ones to where they're all the same. And then do the same on this side. That would make them all the same height as far as what the top is going to sit on. The only issue would be your overall the height of the entire table. When you put it together, it's going to be a little bit shorter, combined probably 1/2 inch or so, combined between both sides. And then you would also have extra on this side, because it was, 1.5 inch was perfect to be flush with the top. Now it'd be too tall, so that would have to be trimmed off, which is no big deal. So I think that's what I'll do for now. We'll see how this goes. I will set the fence up to the deepest on each side and redo those all. And then once this inner piece is done, they're all the same, they're all good, then I can go and finish trimming out the outer edges and trim the rest of this off of each one, and that will be easier, less prone to problems. I now have the fence readjusted to where it is what we talked about, the depth, deepest depth amongst this side. I've labeled all these with an A so that I don't accidentally get the other side mixed up. So these are all have an A on them. I also replaced that F clamp. I put a C clamp on here instead. Much better hold. I put one on this side too. I don't want any chances of it moving again. And to kind of show you what we're working with here. It's just that little bit extra right there that's going to be coming off on this back end toward the right of your screen. So I'm going to do that off camera for both sides, and hopefully when I bring you back, all of them will be done and they'll all be the same. Well, they won't be the same, but they'll be basically, we need this distance from this point to this point needs to be the same on each of these. Otherwise, you're going to have legs that are not the same height, and then it's going to be not going to work well. After running a few through, this is the third one. I've done 2. The fence has not moved. I've been watching the measurements here very closely each time I do a pass. And I can definitely tell a difference. And maybe the camera's getting it. It's this side you can see is thicker up here than this side. And if I take my calipers, you can see here this side looking about 1990, close to upper 19.8 millimeters. But if I go over here, we're at 21.2. So that's the difference there. I finished recutting the base on all of these, and it is much improved. I mean, you can kind of see it. They all line up on this side. And if I put this straight edge on here, well, I guess I'll do it the other way. See there? That's perfect. They are all perfect. This one. Much better. So now, the easier part is just to finish off this piece. That's less critical unless the fence gets like super out of alignment. It's not going to be an issue, but it's not moving at all anymore with these C-clamps on here. So I'll just continue doing that, and we'll be good to go. All 4 legs are now done. They just need some sanding, and then they'll be ready to go. But that's going to be for another time. This video will continue on. I'm just done here for tonight. I've got all this to clean up, messes, or sawdust and stuff everywhere. So that'll be it for tonight. But like I said, this video will continue on. Next, we're going to sand up this face, make it flush, flat, and then we will kind of piece these together and make sure everything looks like it's going to line up correctly, and then it will be time to glue it. Each leg is now ready, and they're all looking really good. The only thing I need to do is sand this face here. I've got a couple ridges here and there from the router, but they're it won't take too much. I'll sand that smooth, and then we'll have to trim off a little bit on the ends here because of having to go further in this way on the shoulder. Means that they're going to be too wide. See there? So I'll trim those up on the chop saw over here. Each side is going to need a trimming. I'll do that after I sand everything, and then we'll be ready to test fit. And the test fit's looking pretty good. Everything's lining up pretty well. And I put these in place. This here clamped down just to hold keep that from falling. Since and same thing on this side. This little piece is just there to keep that side in place and from falling. So yeah, this test fit's looking great. So what I'm going to do now is just get ready to glue it up and clamp it down. And then it's going to need to sit for a couple days for the glue to dry. And we're all clamped up. I didn't record going through all that because it just would have been too much of a pain to try to record and walking around this table a million times and all that. So I didn't record it, but I've got clamps everywhere, and this is exactly why you can never have too many clamps if you do a lot of woodworking. I have a ton of clamps, and it's still used almost all of, well, not almost all of them, but I used a lot of them. This entire rack is full whenever I have all my clamps up there, and so as you can see, there's not very many left over there. So we've got bar clamps, 2x4s going across here to push everything down together on these joints here. Yeah. And then we've got some F clamps going this way to squeeze it together that way. This is still here just because I didn't take it off. So, but that's not really doing anything right now. This little brace. I took the other brace off because it was in the way. But yeah, now we're going to wait 2 days at least. Let all that dry up really good, and then the plan after that is I've got this dowel. This is 5/8. Yeah, 5/8 dowel, and we're gonna come in here to each of these joints, and we're gonna drill a hole in and stick a dowel in it with more glue, and that'll be the joint completed after that dries. So that'll be super strong joints. Way overkill, but I like. It's gonna look. It's gonna have a nicer finish because I'm gonna paint this white when I'm done. So it'll be a nicer finish. You won't have giant screw heads everywhere. So it'll be good, and of course stronger. Stronger than just screws, so it'll be good. But that's going to wrap up this video for this week, and we will bring it back next time once this glue is dry, and I will catch you guys then. So thanks for watching, and see you next time. Have a good one.